Hi, JP here. My novel's just coming out, and I thought the best way to talk about writing a historical work of fiction would be to shut up about it myself and ask the author of the most historical novels I've ever read, Caroline Lawrence.
Hello.
Caroline, it's John Paul.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Is it a good connection for you?
It sounds good. I think it's going to work.
Okay, yay. Excellent. So what are you writing at the moment? What's your new historical novel?
It's a novel about Queen Anne. The last 48 hours of her life, she'd lost 17 children. Who was going to succeed her? Everyone around is trying to make sure it's their man who gets the throne next. And so I've not written a novel before, and I've not written a historical novel before. But what I wanted to talk to you about was, what are the great things about writing a historical novel? Why would we have chosen to do that?
Well, for me, the reason I got interested in classics and history, in fact, was through a novel I read when I was about 19 years old called The Last of the Wine by Mary Renault, a historical novel set in classical Greece. And it just completely opened my eyes to a new world and got me hooked on not just classics, but history. For the first time, I realized history was not names and dates, but it was like a different country. It's a foreign country. The past is a foreign country. And that's what I tried to, when I was studying classics, I was trying to go back in time to that period by reading, learning ancient Greek, by learning Latin, by learning Hebrew, and getting into the heads of the people who lived back then. And when I travel, I try to go back in time to see it as it would have been in the past. So really, for me, historical writing is time travel.
Right, brilliant. Is it also because I don't know about you, but when I was writing my book, I absolutely knew that I was not writing like someone in the 1700s would write if they were writing about those people. So, to what extent is it also writing about the present?
It's always writing about the present too, because if you actually wrote in the state of mind of the person living back then, it would probably be unintelligible to us. I can't even read many 19th century novels. They're just too long and dry. Also, because I write for children, I have to make it accessible to them. So I think every historical novelist does this to some extent, which is to balance um, portraying the past with making it accessible to our reader. And so to do that, we have to make some compromises, really. And it's really, which compromises are we going to make? For me, I try to get all the details of the period right, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the world.
Mm.
But it's much harder to get their mindset right. And even though I introduce slavery and things, excuse me, like my latest book,
Yeah.
if I talk about, if I have a Roman girl saying, why do we even have slaves? That's something no Roman girl would ever have said,
No.
but it's going to raise a point of conversation for the kids in year 4 if they're reading my books set in Roman Britain. So it's a kind of way in for them. So I often have characters in the past who are relatable to kids in the modern times, and that is probably inaccurate.
Right. And do you, when you're writing, in some way sort of feel bad about that, or is it like, here I am helping the reader?
Um, I think I've actually been reading a real Roman novel at the moment, and it is so bizarre. It's so strange, and it's a bit like there was a movie I saw when I was in high school called Fellini Satyricon, which is just creepy. And I think ancient Rome would have been like that, much more than anything we see portrayed. Um,
Yeah.
really bizarre. So, no, I don't feel too bad. Um, no.
And how do you, this is a question that I've been asked, and I don't think there's an answer, but there's a kind of a riff probably that you might be able to make on it. There seems to be a high expectation with historical fiction that you mustn't cheat.
Yes, if you use real characters and real events to as a backdrop for your story, or even as an integral aspect of your story, then you should keep as close to that as you can. But then, if you populate your historical novel with fictional characters, as I do, I mean,
Yes.
you're writing about Queen Anne, so you might, I don't know if she's your protagonist or if you have
Yes.
fictional characters around her. If you have fictional characters, you can do what you like with them, but but I think it's a kind of unstated rule that you have to have the characters, the real historical figures, act as they would have done. For example, in my books, I have Pliny the Elder die on the beach during the eruption of Vesuvius, which he did. Or, but there are certain mysteries. For example, the last book in my Roman Mysteries series is about the death of Titus, the emperor.
Yes.
His death is still an unexplained mystery. So I can take the facts as we have them and have my girl detective make a supposition about how he might have died. But I think you have to, if you're going to introduce real characters and real events, you have to stick to them. Having said that, my second book's based around the eruption of Vesuvius, which is always given as August 24th, AD 79.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, a lot of scholars have said, no, it was in November. So, history is also a bit fluid. We don't know everything about the past. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I did want to keep it really short, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about it, and it feels really lovely and kind of reassuring to know that the processes that I've been wrestling with are ones that someone who's been doing it as well and as completely and for as long as you have, because you've written a whole series of books, not just one. Thank you.
Yeah, I've written some Wild West and some Roman. And if you ever need help, just ring me up and bend my ear. And I can't wait to read your new series. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you very, very much, Caroline. Have a really good trip.
Thanks, Jean-Paul. Bye.
Bye. So there you have it. I strongly recommend that you read Caroline's books. I was gripped by them. If you can find a young person to read them with, all the better.